Today I want to talk a little bit about interviewing. Interviewing is a tough thing to do. It's something that people hopefully don't have to do often. If you have to do it too often, that probably means that you're changing jobs a whole lot, getting fired, not doing well. So hopefully you don't have to do this a lot. But for those of you that want to try to get better at an interview, I want to give you 3 things that I think that will really help you. And the first thing is know good general interviewing questions that could potentially get asked for you. The second is know good behavioral type questions that might be asked of you. There are all sorts of behavioral type questions. And then the third thing is to be knowledgeable in good questions to ask yourself. So we're going to go over those 3 things, and we'll see if we can make you a little bit better at interviewing today. The first thing is to know good quality general interviewing questions that could be asked of you. There are probably a million of them out there. Different interviewers select different ones that they could ask you. Most likely they're going to be somewhat prepared with their list of questions that they think are important, and you don't know what those are. So the best way to prepare for that is to go grab a good solid list of general interviewing questions that could potentially be asked of you, and go through each one of those questions and ask yourself, how would I answer that? And know how you would answer that. So if somebody says, tell me about yourself, which is a general question that you should get asked, you are going to know how you're going to answer that. You're not going to be caught like a deer in headlights. Have you ever seen that happen? They just look at you like, oh, good grief. You don't want to be caught and go, oh, good grief, how am I going to handle that? How am I going to answer that? You want to be prepared for it, know what you're going to say, and just move forward. Thing is here, knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. Make sure that you have the knowledge of what could potentially be asked of you, so you can give a good solid answer and you're not having to come up with it there on the spot. Coming up with it there on the spot is really difficult for most people to do. There are some good salespeople that can come up with things right on the spot, but most people can't. So I want you to be able to be knowledgeable about how to do that. So where do you go and get these interviewing questions is the big thing. Google is such a great tool. You type in google.com and then you type in general interviewing questions, and I promise you are going to have a long list of interviewing questions that could be asked of you. And if you'll go through that list and have that ready, know exactly how you're going to answer it. And I would even encourage you to go with a friend and say, hey, listen, I have this interviewing question. I was going to answer it this way. What do you think? Let them hear how you answer it and give you some good feedback on it. But here's the thing. Make sure that the friend you have do this, make sure that they are at least at your level of career or higher. Please don't get somebody who does not know anything about interviewing and ask for their advice. But I recommend that you have some people gauge you on this and give you some honest feedback, and have it be people that can give you good, solid feedback and not just tell you what you want to hear. Those are not the type of people you want answering this type of information for you. But if you go and do this, you're going to be so much better off than most people, and I really think it'll help you not get caught trying to figure things out in the interview. The second style of interviewing questions that you might get asked are behavioral style interviewing questions, and I think this is the style that most people aren't going to be as prepared for, and it's probably the most important, and it's the style that really stumps a lot of people. And so a behavioral style question is something like, tell me about a situation, how you handled something like this. Explain how you handled it and what was the outcome. And there are many different ways of an interviewer asking you of this. And the same thing as before, if you'll go on and Google and say behavioral style interviewing questions, trust me, that language will help you get there. You'll pull up a list of behavioral style interviewing questions and do the exact same thing that I just told you before. Go through those questions and make sure that you know how to answer those, and make sure that you have good examples. And make sure that those examples lead to a positive result for you, and they're a good description on how you would handle something. In each one of those scenarios, you're going to have to come up with lots of different ways that you would handle this or that or the other. I want to encourage you to use statistical information if you can and have that stuff prepared. If you increased your productivity for your team by a certain percent, if you increase the revenue that your company saw because of you by a certain percent, make sure that you know those numbers and you can say them to other people. It sounds so impressive to individuals or to an interviewer when you can give numbers. Give quantitative analysis on how your company looked at you and how you were able to solve problems. If you increase money, increase revenue, or increase productivity, those are the things that you need to make sure that you're portraying over to your employer. These are so important for you to do. Behavioral interviewing questions are the hardest. You need to prepare for them the most. Most people have no clue about how to prepare for them. And so when you're prepared, knowledge is power, just like what we said before, and this is going to help you. So definitely do not ignore behavioral style interviewing questions. The last group of questions that I want you to be prepared for is not what you're going to be asked, but what you could potentially ask of an employer. Most likely they are going to give you the opportunity to ask them some questions. What a waste of time to say, no, I don't have any questions. And most of the time people are like, no, I don't have any questions. You've already answered them all. But there are two different things that you are communicating that you're missing if you don't ask questions. One, you're not giving the employer the opportunity to see your intellect in the questions that you ask. Most great leaders know that the most important thing that leads to their success is the ability to ask great questions. You can really impress someone by the quality of questions that you ask, and you can gain the best, most accurate information if you ask the right questions. So if you say no to the types of questions, or to a question, to the opportunity to ask a question for an employer, you lose. Trust me, you lose. So make sure that you have a list of questions that you really want to know. I promise you there are certain things that you do want to know if you put some thought process to it. But another thing that you're communicating to the employer is that you don't have anything. If you don't have any questions to ask, good grief, how much do you really care about the position? If you're asking good quality questions, you're communicating to them that you really have an interest, you really have a desire, and that you are someone who cares about this process in the interview. So I want you to make sure that you prepare questions to ask the employer. Ask them, what type of personality fits well with the manager here? What type of management style should I experience here? What type of results are you wanting to see from me in this position? Do I need to hit any metrics? What kind of metrics would you like for me to hit? You're going to show a lot of intellect in the questions that you ask. And also, while you're interviewing, if you have the ability to come up with good questions during the interview that are specifically related to your previous conversation, it's even going to make you look better. But you need to make sure that you are prepared to ask good questions. The second thing that it does is it just gives you information on how to make a better decision for yourself. If you're given the opportunity to ask questions and you decline, you're missing the opportunity to find out more information about what you're getting ready to make a big decision for yourself. Make sure that you make the right decision, make sure that you're prepared, and make sure that you have questions ready for people. That's the third thing, but that's also the most important. Good luck in your interviewing this next year.